let's take a sneak peek at the behind the scenes of my mega Trackmaster review. And hopefully along the way I can inspire you into producing really nice videos for yourself or for YouTube. It's a long video, so you may want to make yourself a cup of tea before sitting down and watching the show. And before I go too much further, I should put this title up because there are some things in this video where you may perceive it to be an instructional. I think the first thing I should say is I found all this stuff to be awesome toys. It really was fantastic to look at these, especially that Shake bridge set. I think this set is fantastic for a number of reasons. I love it. But really, I purchased this little set here, these trains here, because I wanted them to be a key component of what would become, hopefully, a very good intro piece. In one of my Dark Side videos, I featured this horror set, and it had possibly some of the worst rip-offs of Thomas the Tank we've ever seen. But from this set, I've taken out a few carriages, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and replicate that fireworks set up there with some of these very poor knockoffs. So when you're seeing stuff getting blown up and destroyed, I'm not destroying good toys, I'm just destroying things that are possibly better off in the destruction basket. Because my review covered a number of sets, I've got a whole swag of characters and places that I can incorporate into the story. And of course I've got a few Thomases there, and the key component of this Thomas story will be the fact that there's a clone Thomas involved. Just as a curiosity, when you're looking across those three Thomases, it's very interesting to see the big differences in the faces, and many would cite that clone Thomas there as having the old classic face that so many people know and love. Well, anyway, I've got some fantastic destinations and characters there, and I'm pretty sure I can make quite a nice simple story wrapped around what you see before you. One of my main challenges in this little video will be to fool people that I've blown up those real cars with what is rip-off clones or parts of. And I'm going to use a couple of very simple tricks to make these cloned toys look like the real deal. To pull off the detailed artwork, there's one very simple trick I'm going to use. It's one of the oldest and easiest tricks to do. What I did was I did a photocopy of the wagons, and I'll cut those out and apply them to the side of these cloned wagons. But there's also a little bit of dressing that I've got to replicate as well. To cheat the powder kegs of black powder, I'll cut up these and paint them yellow. These are fake ones from the clone set. And to replicate the rocket dressing, I'm going to do something a bit sneaky here and cut up some of that fake track, just cut snippets of it off. And it's going to give me dressing which looks like this. And once it's piled into these baskets here, hopefully it's going to look like little rockets. So hopefully you can see that pulling off this deception is actually fairly simple, and it just takes a little bit of work to pull this magic off. To pull off the shape of that fireworks truck there, I've actually cut the top off a clone Annie. That's not a real toy, that's a clone one. And I've transposed the roof across to a top of a clone wagon so we can get the correct shape to look like a fireworks truck. Well, all the little secrets are coming out in this video, I can tell you. I think they're similar enough that you're not going to notice, or maybe I'll be wrong. Hopefully all these little loose pieces of plastic will get thrown about in the explosion. Well, here's what I'll call the powder keg wagon, and there's the real McCoy. And we'll go along to my Dodgy Brothers one, which is a bit rough and ready, I must say. I've just held these in with a little bit of Lego in there, and I've got 4 other loose ones if I need to go in and do one where the whole thing gets blown up. There's sort of no detailing on the ends. Dodgy Brothers a bit, but I bet you'll barely see it. Now for the covered fireworks wagons, there's the real McCoy. It looks stunning, and here comes the very sinister and evil copy one, which is going to get blown sky high. Got a bit of a dodgy paint job on the top. It's one of those things that got painted with Airfix paint. I ran out of white spray paint, and if you know where to look, you'll see it's a cut and shut job. It's a bit rough, but I guarantee in all the explosions you won't notice it. And for those who are curious to see what these look like side by side, well, there it is. Can you tell the real from the fake? All I know is there's one fireworks train there that's going to go kapow. Well, before I make the intro, of course there's some preparation to do. I've got to sort out the story. It's basically Thomas delivering the fireworks train to Victor over at the Sodor Search and Rescue Centre. But before he goes, there's an exchange between Thomas and Percy, and Percy warns him, "Wow, Thomas, you better be careful, you're going across the Shake Bridge." And along the way, Thomas will pass some other critters, and we'll see the sets that they're associated with, sort of telling the story of the sets that will be in the review. I've actually set up two Shake Bridges there together. I've used a short piece of brown track to join them. I think you could actually marry up a whole bunch of them. It'd be an epic little bit of track. I had to buy a whole bunch of Trackmaster track because I've got very little of it. I've got a lot of that blue stuff. And of course, Thomas gets destroyed on the bridge, and then there's a little bit that happens after that, which we'll keep secret. But that's how it's looking. I've got to try and make it snappy and not have it too bogged down with words. But really it's just a vicious excuse to blow the smithereens out of a fake Thomas. Well, this is my busy rail yards for the beginning of the intro of my big Trackmaster video. And it's a mixture of some old Tomy stuff that I have, and of course Trackmaster track. And there's a conversation between Thomas and Percy, and I'm using a fake Thomas for a very good reason, and if you watch the video you'll know why. But remember, the fake ones don't freewheel. They've always got the gears locked, so parts of this video need Thomas to be puppeteered, so I've had to go and pull a cog out of another one. So this one is a freewheeler, and it's really important to have them freewheeling if you want to puppeteer them. But also this sets up the way the fireworks trucks will be on display in that order. And of course we go on a merry adventure to other locations, and we go past all the Trackmaster sets that we see in the review. Over the back where Thomas appears from, I've got an enchanted forest of sorts. And the other thing I like to do, and I always do this, it's a little bit of a thing that you'll always see me do, is I have wagons which are crashed, or something which is half interesting to look at. And the reason why is that it gives me this shot here, and it's a shot like, you know, Thomas going off and going somewhere else. Now these shots are really important because they give you a little scene that you can break away to then go to your next scene. And they're called cutaways, and they're really important when you're making a video. And when I'm doing this, I'm always looking for cutaways, and another cutaway could be the signal. You do a cutaway of the signal, and it could be a cutaway of another character in the rail yards. And these really help you assemble and edit a video. Without them, you're stuck.
There's something not quite right about Thomas. He just doesn't seem to be his usual self.
And a classic example of a cutaway would be like Thomas talking there. "Ah, Percy, I've got a special, yeah, I'm carrying all the fireworks trucks, blah, blah, blah." And when he says fireworks trucks, you go and you show a shot of the fireworks train, and that is a little edit that then makes you come back and you can change to another frame of Thomas still talking to Percy. That's the way you jump around between characters. It's really, really important to get your head around. The other thing I like to do, and you sort of saw it when I spoke about cutaways, is I like to do things like this. Let's say you're taking a shot of Percy, okay, and then you might want to change that shot, and you think, well, let's get in closer, but let's just put it on a tilt a bit, and then it looks a little bit more interesting. I'm sort of lined up with the track. See the track at the bottom there? I'm using that line there as another shot of Percy, particularly if I get in a bit closer. And that's something I rarely ever see other people doing who are doing this stuff. It's something I do all the time. You know, you take a shot of something and then you just put it on the angle a bit, and it really does enhance the look of the shot. And it's all about composition and framing, and it's a very mature thing in video making, and it takes a while to get used to it. Like this cutaway here, what looks more interesting? Let's say, does that look more interesting? Or does that look more interesting? I think you'll find the angled version of that is the one I'd always use. And you've only got to go and look at the way the old Thomas series is made, particularly the model version, and you'll see this used all the time. You'll see cutaways used, and you'll start to see the magic of filmmaking unravel in front of you. The other thing to do, and I've spoken about this before, and I will keep speaking about this, is when you're doing video of setups like this. It's no use having the camera up in the air here. It looks like I'm doing a helicopter shot. You need to get down low. You need to get down here. And then all of a sudden, it starts to look so much more interesting. And there's a great big helicopter shot for those who are wanting it. Up in the helicopter looking down. Whoa. Pompous little Thomas, always getting the specials. So to get the very final piece of the beginning of this little intro piece, I put the motorised Thomas on there, and he chugs away, goes past that wrecked truck, and he goes off into the bit you never see.
If we're lucky, that'll be the last we'll see of you. Goodbye, Thomas.
And there's a bit of a throwaway line where we talk about Thomas's destination. Of course he never gets there, but we've got to see it because it has a Searchlight section of the set. And I had Freddie come through with a guest appearance. Go Freddie! What's really nice about these little sections of playset that you buy, of course that was a Searchlight one, it came with Victor. It's a fairly unusual character to have in a section of playset, I suppose, which is nice, better than just a Tomas or a Percy. But you know what? I actually bought a fair bit of Trackmaster track to do this review. Luckily it was all on special. Got heaps now. And I'm actually warm to it. I've got a whole bunch of the Misty Island stuff as well, which is brown. I've sort of separated it away from this standard track. But I used to be a lover of the blue track. I'm actually thinking this Trackmaster track's not bad as well. Well, here's the very simple setup for where Tomas and his fireworks wagons goes past Arthur, and he's at the copper mine, and it's sort of a track that goes nowhere. I've set up some trucks to look like a crash site because I think that just adds a whole bit of something to what is a very minimalistic setup. And as Tomas trundles his way through the copper mine, maybe he'll have a chat to Arthur. I'm not sure how much dialogue will be here. Maybe it'll just be Arthur saying, "Hey Tomas, how are you?" It's yet to be decided. And while I'm here, just on these signals that look like this, I think they're called Semaphore Signals. When I was much younger, I used to go to school and go past one, but in Australia, I'm pretty sure the standard was that was stop, and this was go. The signal I used to go past was at Wollstonecraft on the North Shore line of Sydney. That to me said go to school. That to me said don't go to school. And if it looked like that, I'd say it was broken. Maybe I'm showing my age just by revealing that I remember those types of signals on the Sydney train network. Well, this one's the Rusty setup, and it's a bit different to the others. There's the coal hopper going down to the wagon, and there's trusty old Rusty. And what I've done is I've put a whole bunch of those little red generic wagons at the background just for a bit of eye candy, just to fill a space, just to make it just a little bit different. But I want to do something really special for Rusty because he's sort of cool. And just to prove my point about the red wagon eye candy, let me just pull them out of the way for a moment. Whoa! Now they're gone. Look how boring that looks now. That little splash of red at the back made such a big difference. Oh no! There's been a train crash. There's something strangely interesting about trains ramming into a brick wall. Maybe this would be a great subject for another video in the future, because everyone loves a good train wreck. Anyway, with that train restored back to its place, that's how this little scenario looks. Well, next up, or the next major set on this frolic, is the Toby and the Whistling Woods. And I've got Tomas, he's coming along, and knock past the sign. You probably ignore Toby, go through the woods, and he will depart. Oh, another blue tack stop. And if I go right back, you can just see how contrived all this is. Well, this is how the final setup of this looks. It's a shake bridge. It's actually two shake bridges there. And I've put a piece of track in the middle there so I can get a track through underneath between them. And what will happen is El Tomaso, of course this is a fake one, goes along and he struggles to climb the hill. Actually, this fake Thomas, look how weak this thing is. He's going to struggle getting up there, struggling. There you go, so fake and so weak. And of course, what'll happen is it'll all blow up. Actually, he's running amok here. Stop, Thomas, before you cause havoc. Oh no! Oh, that wasn't planned. Yes, you little wrecker. Look at that mess. But I think what I'm showing here is the great versatility of the Shake Shake bridge sets. Imagine if you have two and a few other bits of track, you can actually do a nice little figure eight. And not that I've got that here, but I've got half of it. You could go loop-de-loop there, and you could spin around, and you could actually go loop-de-loop there. It'll be a fantastic little play set. But that's how it looks. And I better go and shoot it because you guys have been waiting for this for ages. Well, I'm up to the part where I'm going to blow up this train. I've taken away the real McCoy wagons there, and I've stripped in the fake ones, the ones that I've butchered from fake toys. And what I'll do is I'll go over to my puppeteered Tomas for this, hand puppeteered, and I'll probably blow it up as we get into this very last section of bridge here. Hopefully it won't take too many takes to get this, and I'll have a number of cameras on it to see the action. And the thing about blowing stuff up is I'll never give you long enough to look at those wagons for you to work out that they are just fake ones. And that's sort of part of the trick, is we swap from seeing those real McCoy ones, and then literally within a nanosecond of an edit we go to these ones blowing up, and hopefully your eye will be so distracted on the explosions you'll never notice that those fake ones have been stripped in. If my fake fireworks wagons get burnt and scorched, I need to do more takes. Well, guess what? I've got more artwork to strip in, so they look brand spanking new again. Okay, let's blow this monkey. Well, I've just had my first pyro shots on the little train going over the Shake Shake bridge. There's the loom of pyro wires coming out the front there, and he was pulled along with a bit of piano wire. He's puppeteered in a sense. And there's the cameras there, and what's really important, I think the first thing is that when you're doing stuff to camera here, the explosions are going off the back, boof, and they're chasing forward. There's no use having the explosions at the front here because then it obliterates anything that happens in the background. So you always want to chase stuff towards camera. As simple as that sounds, a lot of people forget that very simple aspect. And the charges are tiny, and nothing has been really damaged. There's a little bit of marking on the track, and I mean they're really, really tiny charges. I've gone for a sparky look because I think it looks more fireworksy. And there's one of the little charges there, it's gone off. Can't discuss what it was because this is just YouTube. But now I can work up, and I think I've got what I want for the beginning of this. I can work up and really start to be a little bit more heavy-handed with the small charges. Well, I've just done the second lot of little pyro charges, and I think I've got enough which covers the whitish sort of views of this. I think I can go in and I can go and specialise and pick off each carriage by itself as a specialty item. And there's not much damage to these still. I'm pretty sure I can still use what I've got there. No need to dress them up yet. And I think it's always good to remember that these events are happening literally in a blink of an eye, and they're being shot with some cameras that shoot a high frame rate. I'm doing 240 for this, and I'll be only picking out little bits and pieces of the edit because there'll be a lot of footage generated from this, but I'll only be using tiny fragments of what's generated. I moved along another step. I have done a feature on the rear carriage, and I've blown the top off. It's laying down there now, and the next one to pick off will be the one with these yellow barrels of gunpowder. Okay, I've just got the close-up of the second carriage blowing up, and what was important to do was, sure, I was focusing on this second carriage or wagon, but I had to have a small charge underneath the one already blown up because I'd be cutting into this footage. I already need to see smoke and sparks emanating from here to make any sense of seeing this blowing up. If I just blew that up by itself, it would cut in as a clean frame and it wouldn't make any sense. There'd be no continuity between the second wagon blowing up and the first one blowing up. And that's something that's quite easily forgotten, because if I didn't have that spark charge there, it'd be really hard to edit in this explosion here. People would say, hey, hang on a second, that's just got all clean, and all of a sudden, boom. I may do a cutaway of the bits and bobs that fell off, that went flying up in the air and sort of landed over there. I might just do a cutaway of that stuff landing on the ground and exploding. I don't know, maybe it'll just take up too much time, as in edit time, because I want to keep this moving when we see all this activity going on. You know, I did go in and I shot, it took me a couple of times, just one of those bits dropping and an explosion happening. I'm not sure whether I'll use it. I may need it because there's a whole bunch of very similar shots up on the bridge here. And sometimes you need that other little shot to get you back into the bridge shots. It's very hard to edit together very similar looking shots. The next wagon I'll be blowing up is this one. And again, I'll be letting off a little charge here to make any sense of this wagon here blowing up. Well, that little special explosion on that wagon there, it looked fairly dynamic. There's pieces of the wagon spread out everywhere. There's little pieces everywhere. They've gone over there as well. It looked good to the eye. In real time, it happens in a millisecond. And really the beauty of the slow motion cameras is going to tell me whether I have to go back in and do it again. Well, I'm getting to near the end of this sequence of shots that I need to finish this bridge explosion off. And I'm going to pull off a shot, something like where we see Devious Diesel looking at the action, and in a sense it's the wide shot of the bridge blowing up. Once again, I can use this as a cutaway to get between the close-ups and going between wagons. I'm going to probably fire this a little bit slower. I'm not sure what frame rates I'll set the cameras at, but it gives me another option for this whole sequence. I'll pick it up at a point where there's a charge under the first one that gives us a kick in, then I'll blow the wagons up. And I've got some charges under Thomas, and I've actually cut him up a bit. You can see that the front of the boiler there has been cut. And this is the end of this faker. And the tricky part to this is, the old Devious Diesel, he's very dark, and of course the background's dark, so I might bring an LED light in, a little torch, just to give him a little bit of light on the side so we can see who he is. Something like that. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Okay, as the smoke is clearing, I've done the wide shot, and I'm pretty sure I've got it. I did look back at the slow motion cameras. Of course, it was Devious Diesel there, and his point of view of the explosion. Whether he's involved, it's up to you to tell me. And it looked okay. Once again, it's up to you guys to tell me. I can't comment on my own work. Of course, it started from the back. It rippled its way forward, replicating what I've done in the close-ups. And from what I can see, I saw this. I saw this part of Thomas jump up, and that'll give me something to edit into to go in and finish him off, because he somehow landed all back together again. Such is the nature of things. But really, this is my big homage to a person who I really admired. I never met the person. Unfortunately, he's not with us anymore. Mr. Derek Meddings, the person behind the Thunderbirds special effects. "Sir, this one is for you." And I think the other thing to really make a point of here is I'm not blowing these models to smithereens. I can actually use them take after take after take. It's all about preparing the model correctly and using what are very, very tiny and specially made custom chargers that look with the camera and don't blow models to smithereens. I think the other thing to note here is normally if you're blowing up miniatures for big films and stuff, you're not dealing with this tiny scale of this toy. Doing this tiny scale and making it look real is really difficult. Hopefully only in a couple more shots and I have got the bridge sequence done. This little faker Tomas was actually fairly hard to get rid of in the end. Every time I attempted to blow him up, he just sat there and looked like nothing had happened. It was like his last stance. He was saying to me, "I'm not leaving you." But every time he defied to be removed, I just added a little bit more explosives to the charges, because I know sooner or later I'm going to win. I also did this shot of all the debris falling from the bridge, and it was just a whole bunch of pre-dressed Thomas stuff falling down, and it never landed right. So that's why you see it all sort of fall down and bits are upside down, and next thing you see, things are the right way up. It's always tricky to get stuff to land in the way you want it to. After a fair bit of anguish and multiple takes, I got Tomas off the bridge. I've just done the final bit where I had let off some spark charges here, which dropped sparks, and I basically had debris in my hand and I just dropped the debris in front of the cameras there, and it's a little tiny grab that I'll use of that, and then I'll come around and I'll probably get a shot of his face with sparks coming down, a bit like a destruction beauty shot. I'd love to talk about how this is done in this video, but what I will do is I will upload a separate video which just talks about how these sparks are generated and how to do it. I dare not put that in this video because it will cause nothing but trouble for me. It's one of the simplest little special effects tricks to do, but I need to show you precisely how to do it and give you proper warnings as well. Well, all I have to do is sort of the end piece, and that's Percy coming up and saying, "Oh no! My best friend's been blown to smithereens," but of course, there's going to be some sort of happy ending. Well, I'm doing the aftermath now, and of course Percy comes along and sees the wrecked Tomas, and the smoke in the aftermath shot was done with putting incense into little foil trays and making them look like rubble and putting them around the set. They have to be very careful doing that because incense is hot, it can set fire to stuff, and it's really something that only adults should be dealing with. And as for the aftermath debris and the way it all looks there, I tend to dress the camera, so if I'm doing a shot and I need more of these red things to be in the foreground or fill up a black spot, I tend to move them around a bit. You'll notice if you go back and look that this debris pile does move around and morph depending on what camera angle that I've used for the shot. And please don't get your knickers in a knot. That is a faker Tomas. That was never a real McCoy toy, not a licensed product. There's one less on the planet, thank goodness. In fact, all the stuff that I've destroyed came from fake toys. And I've got a bit of a war going on with fake toys at the moment, and I found they're very good to blow up. There's a little camera trick I love to use, and some people may know it as a Hitchcock Zoom. If you watch the Alfred Hitchcock film Vertigo, you will see it being used. Other people call it the Dolly Zoom, and it's all about creating a perspective distortion. It usually takes me a couple of attempts to pull this off, and simply I move my camera towards the subject rapidly while widening the camera view, or by doing the reverse of what I just said. In the Trackmaster intro, I used this simple in-camera effect twice. Down in the info area, I'll put a link to the wiki page which talks about this effect, and you can read about the person who actually invented it. It's a great little trick to have under your hat. It's really interesting with this video. I was going to actually strip in train sounds like clickety-clack, track sounds. But what I found was that the sound that I picked up of just a natural Trackmaster track is actually quite nice to listen to. It's a pleasant sound. And it's also a sound that only Trackmaster track makes. So it's a bit of a signature sound if you're playing with Trackmaster track. So in the video I've used the natural track sound, which is running at normal speed, but as we know Trackmaster trains tend to run a little bit slow, So in the bulk of the video, I sped the train speed up in all those joining shots which are in between each set that I show. The joining shots are important because they let me have a bit of dialogue and introduce the next set, and they also make the video visually interesting. It gives me a number of opportunities to show the train in various ways. Well, crikeys, look at the time, guys. I've hit the 30-minute mark. I really do hope that I've inspired you and taught you some really simple tricks to making your videos better. But more importantly, I hope I've shown you that the Trackmaster system is an excellent toy train system. And as always, thank you very much for your time. Hope you enjoyed the video, and bye for now.